The New York Rangers may not be the best team in the NHL this season and may not be looking like a team who could possibly win the Stanley Cup as well, but they do still have some very solid pieces on this team currently at the NHL level that I do think are pieces to look forward to kind of, watching and kind of seeing on this team years down the road. We're talking 3 to 4 plus years down the road. We're going to take a look at the players that I think on the forward side of things are truly kind of core players for the future for this New York Rangers team. So that's what we're going to take a look at in today's video. Yesterday, we talked about the defensemen and the kind of goaltending kind of side of things there for the kind of future players. And we're only talking about guys at the NHL level who are, at the NHL level right now with this Rangers team and who I think can be on this team, 3, 4 kind of plus years down the road to be, kind of core players and, really impactful guys for this team. So let's get right into it here. And we'll start off with the bottom 6 and then work our way up to the top 6. But for bottom 6 guys, first off, a guy like Johnny Brodzinski, he currently has one more year after this one under contract with the team. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be necessarily a long-term piece for this team, but I could definitely see him sign another kind of 1 or 2 year deal possibly after, his contract ends, not this upcoming offseason, but the one after that. So, we'll have to wait and see, but, definitely could be a guy we keep around in the organization, whether it is at the NHL level in kind of a depth forward role or possibly down in the AHL as well. Then you've got a guy like Sam Carrick there who, this offseason signed a 3-year deal. He's probably going to see the end of that deal with the Rangers there, signed a 3-year deal worth $1 million per season. I don't mind that contract at all. I think for a fourth-line center, he is a fine player to have on your fourth line, bring some of that toughness, physicality, decent two-way play. Maybe he signs another kind of 1 or 2 year deal with us at the end of that contract because he is starting to get up there in age a little bit, but obviously, he is a fourth-line center kind of player, so not going to have the biggest impact, so we'll have to wait and see. Maybe he does come back, maybe he doesn't, but either way, you'll probably see the end of his contract with this Rangers team. Then we have a guy like Jimmy Vesey who is, going to be an expiring contract, a UFA this upcoming offseason. He's been a guy who's kind of bounced around the league a little bit there, but has spent quite a bit of his time at the NHL level with this Rangers team, obviously. Played a lot with us at the beginning, then kind of left us for a bit there, and then came back, and has been a really nice kind of bottom 6 guy for us for a long while now, so I really wouldn't mind seeing him come back, but if he does, it'll probably be, once again on these kind of like really short-term deals, like, 1, 2, 3 years at the very most. So maybe he does come back, but he probably won't be too long-term of a piece, but definitely can be for the next little while. And then we've also got players like Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe, 2 younger guys who, do you want to call them prospects? You could kind of say they are prospects because of the amount of games played they have at the NHL level. But, there's obviously guys who have a bit of experience at the NHL level now. You can consider prospects. Edstrom's got that versatility. He can play wing, either side, and center if he has to. Rempe's a decent winger. Obviously, we know what he brings there, that physicality, toughness. Hopefully, can kind of round out the rest of his kind of all-around game there. But they're 2 young pieces who I do probably see being on this kind of team long-term. Rempe is a nice guy to have in your organization, to be that tough, physical guy out there, to stick up for teammates, bring the energy that we definitely know this team could use more of. So I like having him around as well. And Edstrom is also going to be, I think, a really kind of solid bottom 6 guy, maybe a really good third-line guy possibly, if he kind of hits his potential there. But overall, those are 3 guys who I think I'd like to see around on this team for, the long-term future there, 3+ years on the road. I could definitely see them being a part of this team. And now for a couple younger guys there that have played a lot on that third line in Kaapo Kakko and Philip Hedl. I think both these guys very well could end up being on this team long-term. Kakko is a guy who is an RFA this upcoming offseason, but very well could end up signing a, kind of prove-it deal possibly, and then end up proving it and then signing a longer-term deal with Rangers, or maybe he just ends up signing a, medium-term deal or long-term deal. You never know what happens, but I would guess it probably is going to be kind of a 3-year deal at max there for Kakko, but I think he could be a really solid kind of, third-line guy and very well could end up being here for the long term. And then Hedl there, he's going to be here for a while. He's got the rest of his contract, and then after that, I wouldn't be surprised if he did end up signing, another deal. We'd have to wait and see kind of, what happens at the end of that and kind of how he's playing and his injuries and all that kind of stuff there. But assuming he stays healthy and everything is, good to go there with the concussions and all that kind of stuff there, I would not be against seeing Hedl here for the long term at all. Next, we've got Riley Smith here, who I don't see being here at all long term. It's going to be pretty brief with him. He's a fine player. hasn't been as good as I kind of hoped he'd be. He is a guy who's been good in the playoffs in his pretty much entire NHL career for the most part, so maybe he can kind of really step things up there, but I do see him kind of walking away in free agency this upcoming offseason. Then for Chris Kreider, he's a guy who, it's kind of interesting. He's been in a lot of kind of trade rumors and stuff like that. So, do we see him traded away? Personally, I don't think we're going to see that. And, doesn't have terribly long left under contract with this Rangers team, but I do think he's probably going to sign another deal with this team after that contract ends. He's been here for his entire NHL career, got drafted by this team. He's the longest tenured Ranger. He's got a bunch of our records. I do see him being a pretty much kind of, lifetime Ranger, which I would definitely be very happy with seeing happen. Then for Mika Zibanejad, he's an interesting guy because a lot of Rangers fans, myself included with that contract, kind of want to see him go, but there really is no chance of that happening. He's got a long-term deal still, a lot of years left under contract with an $8.5 million cap hit, and that is exactly what he's going to get. And he's going to get it all that with this Rangers team. He's not going to be leaving anytime soon, unless something drastic changes with his game and stuff like that. I see him finishing out pretty much the entire contract more than likely with this team because he has that full no-move clause up until the last season of his deal. And it's like a week before the trade deadline there where it opens up to like a modified no-trade clause there. So really and truly, he's going to be here for the long term, whether we like it or not as Rangers fans. Next up here, we've got the Vincent Trocheck, Alexis Lafreniere, and Artemi Panarin line. We'll talk about them as a whole here. And if I'm being honest, I think we might see all of these guys here around for the long-term future. Now, the only real question mark about these three, being here 4 years down the road possibly, is Panarin. His contract will expire at the end of next season, so he's a guy who, does he end up coming back? Does he not? I think he very well might end up coming back. We'll have to wait and see, especially if Chris Drury's here. I definitely would see him probably coming back, I'd imagine. Now, it kind of depends whether or not he'd be willing to take a discount because, we'd have to see kind of what exactly our cap space, is looking like, kind of what moves we make this upcoming offseason. But, assuming there is cap available for him, I definitely do see him possibly coming back and kind of finishing his NHL career and pro hockey career possibly as well with the New York Rangers. Then for a guy like Trocheck there, he's still got quite a few more years left under contract, so I definitely see him staying around, and I think he's got great value on that deal as well. One of the more team-friendly contracts you could say around the league, so I think in general, I definitely am more than okay with seeing him remain on this team for the long-term future. And then we have Alexis Lafreniere, who obviously just signed that huge contract, so I definitely see him, staying around for the long term. He'll probably end up finishing out that contract and hopefully will be a lifetime Ranger as well. He's a guy who I got his jersey. I'm a big fan of Lafreniere. I'm Canadian, so I am a massive fan of Lafreniere there. So I definitely am hoping to see him stick around for pretty much his entire NHL career. And we've also got another kind of young guy who's definitely still a prospect, but we can talk about him for a second here, and that is Brett Berard. He's looked pretty good in a small sample size so far. Hasn't played a ton, obviously, but has made his debut this season. Has had some really good seasons down in the AHL, putting up some good point totals. Had a great one last season. Good start to this one. Then gets the call up there. So I think overall he's a guy who's looking like a really promising prospect. Is he a top-line caliber guy? Maybe not, but can he be a possibly really solid kind of middle six winger for years to come? That definitely seems like a possibility. He may be small, but he's got a bit of toughness and grittiness to his game, moments, stuff like that. So I think overall he could be a really solid kind of middle six guy for this team for the long-term future, but obviously is still on his entry-level contract, so we'll see what happens after that. And last, but definitely not least, and there is a reason why I left this player to the end, and that's because I really like talking about him, and he has way exceeded expectations, and that is Will Cuylle. This is someone who will become an RFA this upcoming offseason, but I definitely see him coming back, and I don't think he's going to get a super long-term deal or even a medium-term deal, but assuming he does probably sign more of a kind of 1, 2 to 3 year deal at the very most, I think this is a guy who more than likely will end up being on this team long-term. He has the perfect kind of skill set and overall kind of play style to his game that his team definitely needs more of. He's got that physicality, good defensive play, good offensive play, can score at 5-on-5, he can play make, he can play around the net there, tip pucks in, screen the goalie, has that big body. I mean, there's really not kind of one thing about his game that I think is, just really bad or he's a complete negative. And you can't say that about a lot of players there. A guy like Panarin there, he may be, an amazing elite offensive threat, but, defensively and physically, he's not going to bring a ton. But Will Cuylle's obviously not quite as good offensively, but he's got that all-around game there where there's really not one area in his game that I would say he is, really bad at or really kind of lacks in or can be a liability. So I am really happy with what I've seen so far out of Will. He is someone who I actually got to watch quite a bit, even before he was drafted a bit and also after at the junior level when he was playing in the OHL with the Windsor Spitfire. I am Canadian, so I watched a decent amount of OHL hockey, especially, for the New York Rangers prospects, and this was a guy who I was really happy with kind of watching there. It was a ton of fun to watch at the junior level, being one of the top guys alongside Wyatt Johnson there, who's now a great player for the Dallas Stars. On the Windsor Spitfire there, he helped them get all the way to the OHL finals where they unfortunately ended up losing, but they also got to play, Brendan Othman and his Flint Firebirds at that time in the Western Conference Finals. And this was a guy who really kind of just took over the game at the junior level. And, he's not going to do that at the NHL level, but this is someone who, showed that amazing physicality, which he definitely showed in his first season, his rookie season, last season there with the Rangers. But this is someone who's finally kind of taken that step up. He's really showing that offense that I did see at the junior level and I kind of thought could possibly translate to the NHL level. So we're seeing that now, and I am just really happy with what I'm seeing. He's been playing some great hockey. And I just think as a guy who, when he can put up this amount of points there, especially at 5-on-5, and last season he also only had 21 points, where this season he already has 22 in only 28 games played. He's just looking great this season offensively. He's producing at 5-on-5, at even strength there. He can kill penalties. He can be on the power play. He can play at 5-on-5. I mean, I just think he's an all-around great player, and I am so happy that we ended up trading away Elias Anderson for a second-round pick, which ended up becoming Will Cuylle. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. I do post every single day, so if you're a Rangers fan, this is the perfect place to be. And definitely also, don't forget to comment down below and like this video and, comment your thoughts about all these great young players. Who do you think can be kind of long-term pieces on the young side of things there? The veteran guys who you want to see long-term wise, let me know your thoughts. And also, if you haven't already, definitely go check out yesterday's video where I did talk about the defensemen and the goalies.